Hey there! Have you ever heard the saying, the best ability is availability? In Star Rail combat, we can only interact with the 4 characters on our active team roster. For the most part, that means certain characters end up sitting on a bench collecting dust. But Castorice is built different because of her global revival. Essentially, she doesn't even need to be on the active team for this passive ability to work. Look, I don't have a crystal ball to predict the future lottery numbers, so I can't say for sure if her global passive will make it to release. But if it does, that alone is a solid reason to consider pulling for her, even before diving into the rest of her kit. With that said, let's take a closer look at Castorice beta kit, her skills, playstyle, potential issues, and compatibility with certain characters and team comps. Overall, is she worth pulling? Castorice is a damage dealer who truly pops off once she summons her Violet Eyes Purple Dragon. Before we dive in, let's establish some key terminologies. As a Remembrance character, she has her own memo sprite, called Deathwing or Dead Dragon, whichever you prefer. Ultimately, it's her pet dragon. Now, instead of the usual energy system like most other characters uses, she has her own unique mechanic called New Bud, which she needs to accumulate in order to activate her ult. With that out of the way, let's start with her basic attack. There's nothing special here, it's just a regular single target attack. Next is her skill. Her skill has 2 variations that change depending on whether her dragon is on the field or off the field. For simplicity, let's refer to them as Skill A and Skill B. Skill A is only available when Deathwing is not on the field. It consumes a fixed percentage of all allies' HP, including her own and any other active memo sprites. Then it deals a single target damage with minor splash damage to adjacent enemies, scaling off her max HP. Skill B is only available when Deathwing is on the field. Just like Skill A, it consumes a fixed percentage of all allies' HP except for Deathwing's. It deals a respectable amount of AoE damage, scaling off her max HP. The key difference between Skill A and Skill B is that Skill B drains more HP, but it deals significantly higher damage and it hits all enemies. If all of that gives you flashback of Sunday just yapping on, just remember this mantra. Skill A, no dragon, low damage. Skill B, big dragon, big damage. Next up, her talent. Castorice's talent revolves around New Bud, her core mechanic which replaces the usual energy system. At the start of the battle, she has an empty ult gauge that must be filled with New Bud. There are 2 ways to do this. The first is taking damage. She gains 1 point for every point of HP lost by any ally, including from enemy attacks and HP drain from teammates. The second is healing. While Deathwing isn't on the field, healing for each ally target will generate an equal amount of points. When allies loses HP, both Castorice and Deathwing gain a stacking damage increase up to 3 times. Anyways, long story short, take damage, gain points for her ult. Any type of healing, gain points for her ult. When we fill her up with enough points, we can use her ult. Speaking of her ult, this is the simplest part of her kit. She normally summons her pet dragon and creates a territory which reduces all type resist for all enemies. Territory is a new mechanic, different from the zones that we're familiar with. Basically, they gave her a domain expansion. If I were a betting man, I wager that some future characters will introduce their own territory effects, but as for now, you can only have 1 active at a time. That is pretty much her side of the kit. Now grab some snacks, because we still need to talk about Deathwing. When Castorice synchro summons her pet dragon, it can only remain on the field for a limited time. During this turn, Deathwing has 2 skills to choose from. To avoid confusion with Castorice's skills, I would refer to Deathwing's first skill as Dragon Tail and the second as Dragon Breath. Dragon Tail deals damage to all enemies, scaling off Castorice's max HP. This skill has no cost, however it does significantly less damage, making it functionally Deathwing's basic attack. Dragon Breath is Deathwing's primary source of damage. It consumes 25% of its own HP to deal damage to all enemies. Repeated use of this skill enhances its damage up to 3 times. Using Dragon Breath does not end the turn as long as Deathwing has enough HP to cover the 25% drain cost. This means that in one turn, you can spam Dragon Breath multiple times, dealing massive amounts of damage. Once Deathwing's HP drops to 25% or lower, you have 2 options. The first is to use Dragon Tail for a simple AoE attack that will end its turn. Deathwing will remain on the field, assuming it still has more turns in its lifespan, because if you recall from earlier, Deathwing only has 3 turns before it disappears. The second is to use Dragon Breath one last time, after which Deathwing will disappear, but not before dealing a final burst of damage to a random enemy. This final burst of damage is one of Deathwing's talents. It also has 2 additional talents. Number 1, increase ally damage. When Castorice fusion summons Deathwing, all allies gain increased damage dealt for 2 turns. Number 2, Hoyo will do anything but make another preservation character. While Deathwing is active, allies' current HP cannot drop below 1. Any excess damage is absorbed by Deathwing. And finally, let's go back to Castorice and talk about her 3 main traces. Trace number 1, speed buff. Trace number 2, extra healing bonuses. While Deathwing is not on the field, healing for allies equal gaining points. While Deathwing is on the field, healing for allies equal healing for Deathwing. Trace number 3, more damage. Moving on, so what does all of this really mean for her playstyle? There's only one objective: summon her Violet Eyes Purple Dragon as soon as possible. Castorice is the poster child for this anniversary. It is not far-fetched to say she'll be girl boss for the rest of the year, but she's not really girl bossing anything without her pet dragon. There are 2 ways to build up her ults: taking damage and healing. There are multiple ways to take damage. For now, the most reliable method is to use Castorice's skill, which has a built-in HP drain. Since it is a team-wide % HP drain, using her skill multiple times can quickly rack up points for her ult. To speed this up, we can pair her with teammates that provide action advance. Either way, the more skill uses, the faster she gets her ult. Healing is much more straightforward. Just pair her with a competent healer, ideally someone who can heal on and off turn. I assume most of you have a strong healer on your accounts by now, because if you don't, not even Bob the Builder can fix this gaping hole. The key decision making is knowing when to use Deathwing's explosion damage when it goes off field. And while Deathwing is on the field, the goal is to maximize its impact. It only lasts for 3 turns before getting Thanos away, so we need to make sure no turns are wasted. While specific situations may require different decisions, the general approach is simple. Each turn, spam its strongest skill, Dragon Breath. The max usage per turn is 4 times, but the real usage depends on how much HP Deathwing currently has. Keep using it repeatedly, but stop once Deathwing's HP drops to 25% or below. Now, you have a choice to make. Choice number 1, Kaboom the Dragon to deal a massive chunk of damage. If you are confident that you can get your ult back in time, then this is a way to min-max your damage. As for choice number 2, keep the dragon alive for more consistent damage in the following turns. To do this, you just need to use Deathwing's basic attack, which is just a regular AoE damage ability. This will end its turn. At this point, Deathwing's HP will be dangerously low. To ensure we can keep spamming Dragon Breath to maximize its usage, we need to heal it. This is why a competent healer is essential to this team. Another way to restore Deathwing's HP is through Castorice's talent. Each point of HP lost by allies will heal Deathwing by an equal amount. To summarize all of that, spam her skill, spam her ult, spam Dragon Breath, heal the dragon or explode the dragon. Rinse, repeat, victory. Moving on. Are there any major issues or red flags? The short answer, no. The long answer, not really. The team-wide HP drain in her kit is pretty significant, ranging anywhere from 30% to 40%. This can put pressure on having a strong healer and knowing how to manage SP to ensure the team stays alive. Just imagine that every time Castorice uses her skill, your whole team loses nearly a half of their HP. But she has so many built-in safety nets that even dying once or twice won't really have real consequences. First is her Cocoon Revival passive, which essentially grants the team an extra life. Second is Deathwing's talent absorbing lethal damage that allies would have otherwise taken. In addition to all of that, some healers even have emergency healing, which is another safety net to fall back on. Moving on, let's talk about who Castorice pairs well with. She is surprisingly flexible when it comes to team compositions. But don't get too excited. While there are many viable comps, not all are equally effective. As long as that's clear, you can start cooking. For now, let's focus on sustain characters. Since any form of healing contributes to our ult gauge, looking at the current Abundance character roster, you can probably ignore like half of them, and just pick the one that suits you the best. However, 3 of them stand out a bit more: Luocha, Gallagher, and Lingsha. Luocha provides passive healing through his field and auto healing, making him an SP efficient pick that allows the rest of the team to be more SP hungry. Gallagher functions very similar to Luocha, letting allies to heal off of their own attacks. Plus, he has an aura of being free to play, which is always a bonus. Lingsha is a bit more complex because she demands more SP to maximize her own healing. However, if you're willing to invest in the SP, she can provide team-wide healing every turn, which speeds up the healing from her rabbits as well. The key difference between these 3 healers is their healing mechanics. Luocha and Gallagher enable teammates to heal on their own turns, making them more efficient for SP management and more consistent for off-turn healing. Lingsha, on the other hand, is more focused with her healing centered around her and her rabbits. Also, for what it's worth, all 3 of them have the ability to remove debuffs, which is a nice bonus. As for the support pairing, it honestly depends on the other members of the team. Anyways, here are some standout support options in no particular order. Beginning with Sunday. Since Castorice doesn't consume SP, her teams often have an SP surplus. This will allow Sunday to spam his skill every turn without drawbacks. He provides powerful offensive buffs like crit rates, crit damage, and even action domains, all incredibly valuable for maximizing damage and allowing Castorice to use her skill more often. While Sunday's energy regen doesn't benefit Castorice at all, she still receives the crit damage boost. Plus, I think it's really cute that the dragon gets the Sunday halo as well, so bonus points for me. Next up, Tribby. Her massive HP bar synergizes well with Castorice. This is because HP drain on higher HP allies will generate more ult points. Tribby's ult boosts every instance of Deathwing's attack, including Dragon Breath and the Kaboom damage when Deathwing leaves the field. She also provides all-type resist pen and increases enemy damage taken, making her universally strong, especially in double DPS comps. As always, I have a mandatory obligation to say that Tribby's E1 is not fair. And the last character to highlight is Remembrance MC. I still can't believe this character is free with how well they can fit in any, if not most of all of the 3.x teams. They provide action enemies, which lead to massive true damage sequences for Castorice and her dragon. They also offer general stat boosts such as crit rates and a huge chunk of crit damage to the entire team. Since Castorice doesn't use much SP, SP can be funneled into Remembrance MC. Now, if none of these options work for you, other top tier supports like Ron May, Robin, or Pella are also great choices. Anyways, there are so many different team setups for Castorice that I feel like it's a disservice to not try them all. We can do something along the lines of a double healer comp to take advantage of the fact that any healing will contribute to getting her ult. And as I mentioned earlier, a double DPS comp is always worth exploring. Remember that the main objective for Castorice is get her ult ASAP. Having the likes of Mighty, who has an HP drain, is a nice battery boost. Both of them can also dish out a respectable amount of damage on their own. On the subject of battery boost, Blade can also act as a battery for Castorice. Blade has a unique playstyle where he's constantly losing and gaining HP from his own kits, without any outside interference. This constant damage taking and damage dealing is a nice synergy with Castorice. Anyways, a default team will look something along like this: 2 supports and 1 healer. Tribi, Remembrance MC, and Sunday are at the top of the list for the supports. As for the healers, Lingsha, Gallagher, and Locha are on the top of the list. My only concern with pairing Remembrance MC and Sunday is that it can lead to a messed up rotation due to the variable nature of Remembrance MC's action areas. With that said, there are plenty of interesting synergies to explore, and Castorice is one of the characters with a lot of creative freedom. Moving on, the question of the day: is she worth pulling? Like it or hate it, her global passive revival ability makes her an incredibly intriguing character. The fact that just having her in your account without needing her on the team can activate her passive is basically a giant glowing pull me sign. But if that alone doesn't spark your interest, I firmly believe her playstyle will win many of you over. She has so many different ways to build vastly unique comps, and skipping her might just feel like standing by the window and watching everyone else having fun. Is she a must pull? Not really. No character is ever a must pull. But is she a fun, interactive character with a lot of creative freedom built into her kit? Yes she is. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.